We're here today to speak with Taylor Kimbrell with Apex Solar Power. He is the Vice President of Marketing for the company. And we want to welcome Taylor today to our series of interviews with Sustainable PR, and where we will be reaching out to companies who are innovating in the green economy and making a leadership initiative to support sustainability and climate. So I want to welcome you, Taylor, to our interview series. And we're going to ask a couple Q&A questions, and we'll learn more about what Apex Solar Power does. So welcome today.
Thanks, Tony. Pleasure to be here today.
Taylor, tell us a little bit about how the company got started and what are some of the key milestones in your growth?
So it was started in 2007 by Stan Dobert. Stan has a passion for renewables, worked on a number of different projects in Colorado and Arizona, and started slowly doing a project here and there. And it really just grew as a result of the growth of renewables, the advancements in solar technology, and ultimately the incentives being rolled out in New York State. Various milestones at Apex are, solar traditionally was always our core product, and that was booming. Mm-hmm. And then what happened is some diversification. So we started doing a lot more with storage, batteries. We diversified the company and also started a roofing division. And then now we're doing a tremendous amount with electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So it's been exciting to see a multitude of new products, diversification of the company, and growth across all those various product lines.
How big is the company, Taylor, in terms of employees and annual revenue?
Right now, we're about 150 employees. That number toggles. Sometimes we're in 100, 120. Sometimes we're 150, depending on either projects that we have coming down the pipe, different partner relationships we have throughout New England. It kind of varies. The majority of our employees are electricians and contractors.
Tell us a little bit about the location. And you're here in Queensbury, New York, Warren County. How did you choose, how did the founder, I guess, choose this location? And is the Adirondack Park being so close, is that a plus for your brand?
It is. Glens Falls was selected. Stan has family in and around Bolt Landing, Lake George, Glens Falls. So it was a natural fit. He also is very avid outdoorsman, hiker, skier, so on. So, and it's really worth noting that at Apex, we have a strong work-life balance, and the Adirondacks plays into all of that. One thing I loved about coming to Apex is everybody is a true outdoorsman, one way or another, whether it be skiing, hiking, trail running, biking. We spend a lot of time in the outdoors. So
the notion that we have this amazing resource that just outside our doors here in Glens Falls, and being a green company, does the setting help you in your marketing? Because we'll talk about it in a minute, but you're not just a regional phenomenon, you're many states. So you're presumably the company is competing nationally.
Yeah, the Adirondacks has been a great place for us. As you know, Tony, there's a like-minded, there's a mindset in the Adirondacks. There's an environmental consciousness that's sort of around us. So the demographic falls in line very nicely with our brand and our product line for sure.
We spent a little time getting familiar with Apex Solar Power, and you've got a nice graphic on your website that you've expanded to 8 states. How did you do that? How did you achieve that kind of growth where you're now competing on a national scale?
It's happened organically. When I started with the company 7 years ago, we were just in the capital region. Glens Falls, the capital region. And then as incentives started rolling out in different states, we would sell a deal or have a relationship in Massachusetts or Vermont. And then slowly it just organically grew to where we're throughout New England, and we just opened up the Carolinas, in fact.
What are the different types of solar technology that you provide? And perhaps you could explain a little bit about their applications.
Sure. So solar is a big part of our business. And then, we started a roofing division, and what we're seeing is a convergence in technology between traditional roofing and solar. So Tesla Roof has just rolled out the new Tesla Roof, where you've been onboarded with Tesla. Tesla is a very good partner of ours. So the big advancement in technology in solar is becoming sort of one application, where if you needed to replace your roof and you have the intention of going solar, you would just do a solar roof. So that's big. The next big one, big technological advance, is in storage backup, battery backup power, the ability to basically have a renewable generator inside your home. So if the power goes out, you've got all of your utility critical loads covered. The nice thing about a battery backup is it makes no noise and never needs refueling as long as you've got solar. So, and then the other is electric vehicle charging infrastructure. With the growth of electric vehicles, I don't know if you know, but every manufacturer is going to go all electric pretty much by 2030. Volvo announced that. GM has announced that. Volkswagen, I believe, announced that. So we're seeing huge growth both in electric vehicle charging infrastructure on the residential level as well as commercial.
Taylor, I'm glad you mentioned that about the automotive companies, because we noted the VW, Volkswagen's big announcement about a week ago, and we're jumping on that from an analysis standpoint to talk about, it was a great PR splash, and the question is, are they going to change the world beyond what Tesla's done, or is it just really good marketing? And it seems like they're going to change the world. But the notion that they're creating those 6 or 8 mega plants dedicated to battery production is ambitious and notable. And if, as you said, if you know anything about the automotive space, we have a client in the automotive industry, in fact, that Volkswagen is, I think at last count, the world's largest automotive company. And they jumped ahead of Toyota a couple of years ago. So when they make an announcement like that, they have the gravitas to really pull it off. And so you're absolutely right. It just feels like we're turning the corner on EVs and renewable battery technology. Speaking of which, talked a little bit, let's segue to some policy questions, and we'll see how comfortable you are with these. After a couple of years here of renewables not being at the forefront of public policy, federally speaking at least, how will President Biden's new climate plan help the solar industry as you see it?
Well, it's interesting enough that the federal tax credit was set to wean off. It was set, as you may know, it was 30%, then it was 26%. It was slated to go down to 21% this year. The first COVID relief plan actually built in a renewal of the federal tax credit at 26% for the next 2 years. So that was significant. Rather than a phase out of the federal tax credit, we've seen an extension that's tremendously helpful. What we're also seeing is...
And just to be clear, those are credits specifically to purchase renewable energy. Is that correct?
Yeah, solar right now, both residential and commercial, is eligible for a 26% federal tax credit. That's correct.
Well, I'm sure our followers, listeners will be very pleased to hear that. It's good news.
Yeah, so that is a significant part of solar's growth. The incentives. Without the incentives, tax credits, available grants, and so on, you would see a stagnation of renewables. Instead, we're seeing tremendous growth. Not only that, but there's a federal tax credit of 30% on residential electric vehicle charging infrastructure that you put in your garage. We've seen the Public Services Commission at the utility level create incentives to do commercial projects. NYSERDA has been extending their incentives on electric vehicle charging infrastructure. There's a 30% federal tax credit on, 26% federal tax credit on solar storage if incorporated and charged by the sun. So all of that falls in line with the policies, right? So when we see those extensions and we see that support, it's very good news for renewables.
Obviously, we are in a competitive race with China on the manufacturing and installation of renewable technology, and specifically establishing energy independence. Do you see China as a big threat or competitor? Does it ever factor into the efforts of Apex Solar Power, or is it kind of a non-issue in your view?
It's a bit tricky. I see both sides of it, to be honest with you. I do see the competitive landscape. For example, Panasonic is no longer, they're weaning out of the panel manufacturing. We've seen players like SunPower switch from manufacturing to more of a sales role because of the competitive nature of China. I've seen, we've had to hedge and purchase product out of China. It's I don't know. Yeah, it definitely affects our business.
Now, related to the progression and evolution of solar energy specifically, I've been around long enough to remember when President Carter was putting a big push behind it in the late 70s. And so it's been around, it's been with us for a long time, right? And is now the time, do you think, whether it's the Biden plan or the, just kind of reaching a critical mass with respect to awareness of the importance of sustainability, the importance of climate? Are we at a point now where we'll all be jumping on board as consumers to put panels on our houses and to get, the next vehicle that we buy is an electric vehicle? And that's the first question. The second question related is, where do you think the industry will be in the next 5 years? Yeah,
I mean, we're seeing a huge adoption, right? And we see it almost as a lifestyle, what's happening. Early on, the early adapters, they were, for lack of better terms, they were kind of really green, really hippie, kind of,
Sure.
Now it's more mainstream. You walk in a Home Depot, Tony, you see the lawnmowers. They're now an electric option. You want to get a chainsaw, there's an electric option. So the growth of lithium ion, the more it becomes pervasive into our just everyday, you're seeing it become more mainstream. We're also seeing a skew in our demographic profile where traditionally it was an older demographic, maybe 60 plus. We're seeing now it being part of the first-time home buyer or people in their 30s, early 40s, and it becoming not just it's like yeah, of course we're going to get solar, not we've wanted to do this for 20 years type.
Yeah.
Almost where it's traditionally was more of a emotional purchase or decision is now becoming almost transactional, just like you would do any other capital improvement to your home. Solar is a logical next step. It makes there's a return on investment. It's common sense. It's good for Mother Earth. It's good for your wallet.
Yeah, so I hear you. And it sounds like where years past, it might have been a passion, right? Whether they were bleeding edge or not, early adopters, it was the purchases were typically motivated by a passion to do good. Now it's more of a practical consideration, right?
Correct.
And I wanted to follow up on that. point that you made about generations. Part of our narrative of sustainable PR is that we understand that the marketplace is changing in terms of the consumer purchasing power. And the purchasing power is going to be with the largest demographic in history since the baby boom bubble. And that is millennials. And they have come up reared on sustainability. They're smarter than previous generations. They're actually putting the purchasing pressure on their parents, for instance, and they're providing great education and innovation in the marketplace. Now, with that preamble out of the way, I would ask you, do you recognize that as a powerful force in the industry, which is this not only a large demographic bubble, but they're all oriented to the notion of the importance of climate and sustainable products and services? That would seem to me to put your business in a good position.
I mean, I agree with all of that. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head, really.
Good to hear. We talked a little bit, Taylor, about incentives, kind of being the power behind the solar market. When you make a case may be the wrong word, but when you speak to potential customers, how do you communicate the value proposition of doing what's in your background there, which is to, install a big mass of electronics on your roof, which, from an aesthetic standpoint, maybe homeowners are concerned about it. You're driving around a Tesla car. In and of itself, it is a piece of art. It is beautiful, beautifully designed. But when you're, placing slabs of photovoltaic technology on a roof, that changes the landscape, so to speak, of a homeowner's property. So how do you communicate the value proposition of why do this?
We have multiple ways to install. We can install a ground mount on somebody's land. It can be, far away from the home, or we can do it on the roof, as long as it's oriented sort of south. So, I mean, there is an aesthetic component that goes into it, and we want to make sure that the customer, likes the way they look. We would never install something they don't agree with. But really, it comes down to, to your point earlier, the customer is emotionally connected. They want to go solar. They want to do their part for the planet, but also they want to do their part for their wallet. So
Sure.
Usually what we're doing is we're building a system to offset all of their electricity needs through various net metering through the utility level. And then we spell out the incentives. So in New York State, there's a nice CERTA grant that comes off the top. There's a New York State tax credit for residential, if it's your primary residence, and there's a 26% federal tax credit. So you take all that in consideration, you're alleviating about 50% of the project cost. And then what we can show is that you can finance these systems for less than your utility bill. The good news is the financing will go away where your utility bill will never go away. So it's a way to create long-term savings, a bit of energy independence, and ultimately hedge against the cost of future utility escalation. So usually that makes really good sense for our customers, and they see the value.
How does Apex Solar get their name out to the marketplace and build a loyal customer base?
Well, traditionally, we've done, home shows, we've done exhibitions, we've tried to align our brand with our customers' interests, whether that be farmers markets or wine festivals, music festivals, try to participate. Since COVID, we've pivoted more into a digital marketing through social media, search engine marketing, so on and so forth. So, and we've also done more of this, Tony. We're no longer going into people's homes. We're conducting web-based meetings at our customers' convenience. which is fantastic. It's also better for the environment. We're not rolling cars and printing paper and putting gas and doing overnight hotels and all that. That's all gone. So, which is fantastic.
And I've seen your vehicles on the thruway, New York thruway. So you've got branding, you've got effective branding going on your vehicles, and every time one is out for an install, of course, folks are seeing the name.
Yes.
And so that's helpful. Yeah, noted, COVID has impacted sales and marketing communications big time, particularly for companies that utilize an in-person presence, whether it be trade shows, conferences, or public events to get their brand visibility. And it's going to be interesting, I think. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but after COVID passes, how much of the knowledge learning that we've acquired vis-a-vis forced to go digital, right? Like Zoom. I mean, how many people were using Zoom for a marketing communication tool prior to COVID? Not many. And the growth of that platform, that application speaks for itself. So it's going to be interesting to see, I think, when we get past this and we return to quote unquote normal, how much of this digital technology will remain the driver for brands such as yourself. And one final question for you, Taylor, is staying on the subject of your customers. As being the head of sales and marketing, you get your name out, you get visibility, you generate leads. Once you have a customer, is it easy to sell them additional products and services? And how do you go about that to increase the value per customer?
We follow our customers' leads. So if a customer, went solar with us a couple of years back, and now they're wanting to they got an electric vehicle, we try to create the Apex lifestyle so that, if you got an electric vehicle, we have the charger. If you have an existing solar array, we can add batteries to it. If you're going into a smart home scenario where you're trying to update everything, we can put home monitoring on your system so that you can monitor all of the load consumption throughout your home. I can't force anybody to get a battery, right?
Right.
So you have to kind of come to me. I can plant little seeds. I can do some email marketing. I do webinars monthly talking about new products that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it comes down to our customers. We want our customers to see the value in a battery or see the value in an electric vehicle, and so on. So.
Great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate your time. Thank you.